Welcome everyone to the already second version or second iteration of our Sustainable IT Meetup. I'm really happy to see a lot of you showing up here. It's always a question with Meetup. And there has been some anxiety for me around how many people would show up in terms of food, but I think everything went well. I got some reviews on the food. I hope most of you enjoyed it. We have a really fun program tonight. We're going to start with two speakers, Twan Koot and Michiel, who are going to give a presentation about cloud sustainability. This is the first time they are doing this presentation, but it's the 16th time they're on stage this year.
Yeah.
But Michiel just told me that he's still a little bit nervous, so give them an applause.
It's always a nice icebreaker, right? I mean, not really nervous.
But that's fun now, because I can mess with him, just making the screen black. No, we are not going to be too big. No big rolling or special things, no tricks. He's nervous because usually we have 50 minutes and we still run out of time. Now we have 25.
Yeah.
Maybe. And we have 72 slides? Sorry, I'm not joking. That will be an interesting part. But that's also 72 slides. That's also because tomorrow, during a technical development conference, the same presentation will be given with more technical details. So we skip a lot of technical details today. If you want to need more about that, just ask.
So hopefully we sped up a bit because we have also a live demo, which is also fun to do. Otherwise you get the screenshot, which is a bit less fun. So let's start off. Michiel, a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I'm 45 years old. That's every year that changes. That's really odd. I'm solution lead, Microsoft Azure Cloud, Microsoft ALM at it's Ordina, Soprasteria. We are changing, so it will be Soprasteria in the end. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, according to Microsoft. I know something about Microsoft Azure, and what I know, I share that knowledge, and that's why they say, okay, wow, great. One of the fun facts I like in Azure, this is my favorite service, is function apps. However, this is of course not really, I'm not sure. Who knows what is function apps in Azure? Cool.
Who works with Azure? Who works with cloud? Then we have everybody in the room, so we covered.
So in my opinion, function apps is really, you have a bit of code and you run it in the cloud, and that's really the idea and the philosophy of the code in running code and running serverless.
I will take it. So I'm Twan Koot, I'm 31 years old. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. Became that because I've talked a lot about cloud together with Michiel. I'm a principal expert on Azure, which basically means I breathe Azure, I dream about Azure, I do nothing else. And my favorite is app service. Again, we work for Soprasteria. But let's start. This presentation started out as a cloud cost reduction presentation. You might be wondering what has that to do with sustainability. Well, the thing is, if you start saving money on Azure, you automatically start using Azure a little bit less. Therefore, your CO2 impact is decreasing. So the same principles of saving money in the cloud apply to sustainability. And even more, there are more principles to be done.
Yeah.
So we all go to the cloud because what it promises it was cheap. It isn't. It's super expensive. It's super complicated, and therefore we make mistakes. And these mistakes create a lot of unused compute power, which in fact has an impact on the environment.
So Yeah, and the problem is also not about, we all know, at least in this room, we are all aware that sustainability is really important to get attention from, but everyone is sleeping okay, and that's the problem. I mean, the managers are not really awake in the middle of the night and think, I'm affecting with my cloud footprint the ecosystem. They sometimes are awake about a huge bill.
Yeah, so they care a lot about money. So if you talk to your manager and say, well, I can save a lot of budget by implementing certain things like green coding, they say, oh, great. If you say, okay, we can reduce the amount of CO2 impact, it's already a bit harder to sell those architectural changes. And who's here using AI?
GitHub Copilot, ChatGPT, something, yeah, everyone?
Yeah, it has the most impact currently on the CO2 impact of IT.
Even more than all the cryptocurrencies together, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. And that was already a couple of years. That amount, that is insane.
Yeah. We aren't struggling alone. Like every company who uses the cloud has the issue of over capacity, so waste, spending too much. If you spend too much, you also have a big CO2 impact. It's a bit tricky when we talk about, okay, what's the environmental impact of IT? Because many companies use IT, but are in a different sector. So their impact on the cloud on the environment is maybe labeled under energy. But every energy company in the Netherlands is using AWS or Azure, some sort of cloud. But their CO2 budget is being posted within energy industries.
So, and therefore, while we are not really available in all those diagrams and pictures and places where you can say, okay, the CO2 problem is in that industry, but not in the IT industry, while IT industry is at the same time.
I think it's the next slide. It is.
The same time, part of the problem, but also a part of the solution.
I think we're currently, the IT sector is 1% of the total CO2 emissions of the whole world.
Yeah, and that's at the same time it's everywhere, right? As IT company, you are in every industry. So the first primary target of improving your CO2 footprint, or at least in sustainability, is reduction of your CO2 footprint. And you can do that by recycling, energy consumption reduction, but you can get more reduction by a good design and improve your decisions and look back at your decisions in architecture part, in reusing part, and from technical point of view, you can, for example, use Azure stacking in Azure Performance. You can really look on a different way by combining techniques as the same as you would do in your own data center. Because if you had your own data center still, some companies still have it, then you can reuse already a server instead of just adding another server, but that takes time, energy to reuse the same hardware in the cloud.
Yep. So I'll take the next.
Yep.
I'm pushing a bit of slides through because I promise you the demo. What can you do? I think it's quite easy that you can recycle telephones. For instance, if somebody leaves the company, you can take the laptop and wipe it clean and give it to somebody else. That's what we can all think about. But in the cloud, we can do green IT infrastructure, which means we can maybe go to a data center which is more sustainable. We can also do green coding, which may sound to you write in a green font. No, it's writing software which is efficient and is able to auto-scale uses less energy. Who here knows the most polluting programming language? Python. Yes. Which language is currently most hot and happening? Python. Because of AI. But that's also a choice you can make. And further down the slides we have a nice overview of different languages you can use and the impact on energy. And awareness. Everything we do, especially in the cloud, costs money, has a CO2, has an environmental impact. Now how can you solve this in the cloud? It's based on 3 key areas. It's architecture, it's continuous improvement. It's not you're gonna fix it once and then it's solved forever. And it's about people. In the end, people, engineers, cloud engineers, developers, designers are the ones who make the system, run the system. So those people need to be aware that there's an impact or a benefit to gain.
And then one of the more important parts where you can actually do is make it also interesting for the cost savings part to get the attention of the board and then reuse that money by investing more or in the cloud or in sustainability, but creating space in the project plan by reducing the cost. And geo-efficiency is one of the most important part for that.
Because
I don't know if everyone knows, but you have a lot of data centers all across the world. At least from Azure, it was 60 plus.
Yeah.
You have, for example, West Europe and North Europe for a simple comparison. Roughly said, that's in footprint and in pricing, that's an 8% difference, West Europe versus North Europe. So North Europe is in Ireland, the data center, that is already from your Azure bill reducing 8% of your cost. So if you want to make impression by your manager and you want to say, hey, I want to reduce cost and it should be in a data center in Europe, why not for at least a part of your cloud footprint, just move it for maybe the non-production part. Yeah. Move it to the North Europe part.
I think the best or the most sustainable data centers from Azure are the Nordic ones. Because you can also look at the mixture of energy within a geographic area. So I think the Netherlands, we had 1 or 2 days where we had 100% renewable energy source. But there are countries which percentages are higher, so those data centers have less CO2 emissions when we use power.
And Scandinavia is...
so if you want to use the greenest data center, you should switch to, I think, Sweden, Central or Norway in terms of CO2 impact. So you can do that, and the service is the same because Azure across the globe has a unified service. And we'll skip that. Something really cool. What is the most wasteful thing we can do is create waste, especially in the cloud, because those machines are running, they cost energy to run, they cost money, and it's a shame because it's waste. I think I'm gonna say something not so nice, that I think from all the people here, all your system has waste, and I think more than 50%. So first let me explain what is waste when we talk about cloud. Let's say you have a VM, virtual machine in the cloud. You use that for like 25%. The rest of the capacity is unused. That's a waste. That's more a bit. You might think, okay, when I use a system more, I'm using more energy. That's not entirely true. There is a curve for energy use and usage. And I think it's around 30% more when you fully load a machine compared to just having it idle. So you're better off using the whole machine than having it idle in terms of waste in the cloud. We can also calculate that, you can improve that by improving code efficiency, writing more efficient code. Also, that's green coding. You can use the right SKU, which is called the right size for a machine or a service. You can use auto-scaling, zero user impact, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. And you can use stacking. And what stacking means is that you stuff multiple applications on one machine instead of every application has their own database cluster or Kubernetes cluster. You start stacking all those applications on one system.
And then it's the difference, and small disclaimer, the CapEx, OpEx, I know this is a financial term, we are talking about our interpretation, so not the financial part, however, it's almost the same.
Yeah, so when you look at, I think there are a lot of people from Rabobank over here, so they have the system, their own data center. When you have your own data center, you have a huge upfront investment to get it. And the return of investment is based on how much you use it. So the more you use your data center, the better it is. And it's also greener. As I mentioned, the more you use it.
If you already have that data center racks on and running, etc. Yes.
The downside is it's only a data center for one company. It's not being shared. When it's end of life, you have a lot of e-waste because the whole data center was being shifted off. If you compare that to the cloud, which is OpEx, operational expenditure, it's shared by many companies. So in essence, the cloud is greener than your own data center because it's being used by more and more companies. So you can say, well, we go to the cloud to improve our CO2 impact.
And still, the less Azure you use, the lower the CO2 impact is the same at the same level true as you pay less for if you don't use the cloud. But if you are making mistakes, for example, rookie mistakes, create a virtual machine, leave that virtual machine on, the bill will be high, the emission will be just waste because you are not using it. That same count for bill, for emission. But you can reduce it optimal by shutting the systems off.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is just easy achievable by creating a simple instruction, turn your virtual machine in the cloud off on the end of your day, or by automating it, and really, please, not create auto start for virtual machines in the cloud.
Yeah, I have a great analogy for that. Who here shuts down their car when they come home? You turn off the car, right? You don't leave it running. Who here shuts down their cloud machine when they stop working? Only a couple? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
an impact. And the same goes when you go to bed, you shut down like the heating in your house because you're like snuggle in bed, so it's quite warm. The same applies for your machines in Azure. Why would you keep them running?
And we have seen that also over here, practice with reach. We have seen also at Ordina that some colleagues just leave that VM open 24/7 because it's convenient.
Yeah, so just something simple as shutting down your machine already has an impact. And in terms of shutting down your machine and only starting it up when you need it, you can compare that with JIT, just in time. We like to call it just in time cloud. And then when you talk about JIT, you can talk about lean. And then we can look at the principles of lean on how do you reduce waste.
And over on the left hand you see the official lean definitions. We have our own lean cloud definitions. For that being said, if you like to have to receive the presentation to get more inspired or getting more of the details, at the end we have a QR code then you can contact us and then get those slides. But it's more or less the same. It's more or less the same. You need to ensure that you keep that process and your eyes on that system and keep on improving, because we are not on the optimal way in 1 day or in 1 week or 1 month. It's a journey, right? And that counts same for how to improve, automate everything, ensure that you have always a cloud first topic in mind, create a cloud native architecture, and lift and shift is really bad from cost, energy reduction, because lift and shift really takes a different kind of approach in the cloud, and that costs a lot of money, and it ensures that everything that you created with an architecture, that it is always on in your own data center, is always creating waste in the cloud. So create a cloud native architecture. And then I want to say continuous improvement. Keep on improving by creating a budget.
Yeah. So when we talk about budgets, we usually talk about money, but you can also set budgets based on CO2 emissions. I'm going to show it in the demo. That's something maybe fun to do, or fun. It's quite neat
I want to click to that. Okay.
To use a budget based on that. Stay away from fixed budgets, because those are easy. Just staying €1 below the budget and everybody's happy. So I always say use metric-based or variable budgets based on maybe a Black Friday, then you have a little bit more lineage or more budget because you need more compute power. Mm-hmm. But during the night time, there aren't any use on the system. So use a budget. This one. It's usually we talk about zero user cost, but we changed it for zero user impact. And what we mean by that is that when you look at the cloud, the most optimal usage is when there aren't any users or aren't any activity.
Then you need to at least have the application running, so keeping the lights on.
Yeah. And what we tend to see is that people set up their cloud environments for that one busy day in the year.
Yeah, and you need to ensure that the whole year you have the impact of the cost and the emission low, and only scale at the right moment. So design for scale, design for the cloud native, and not just having a huge Kubernetes cluster because one developer thinks, oh, I want Kubernetes. And really, that happens today. And Kubernetes clusters are 99% of the places where it is rolled out, not necessary. And those have real impact.
Yeah, so instead of just look at the impact of the zero users, you can do some optimization, multi-tenancy, so sharing resources, and I think that's one of the big keys is sharing different resources, let's say the firewall. Not to talk about team, because I'm looking at the time.
Go for the team. Green coding, code optimization, we have talked about that. Let me check if this is working to go to the Microsoft has almost for everything learn paths, also for sustainable software engineering. So everything that you want to learn your own team to improve your coding experience sustainable, you can go to learn.microsoft.com, and there's the principles of sustainable software engineering. You can follow those paths. And over here we have also
I promised you the overview of
all the languages, and then you see over here Python has really impact on the load on your compute power.
You already can see the low level languages are on top and the higher level languages are below.
It's all about compute power in the time, right?
Yeah.
And ensure that you have that in your team and create someone responsible for your team and we call it formally Captain Cash. We still need to come up with a new name for that, but at least have also a Captain Cash in your team. So one person in the team who has the cap, that person is Captain Cash and also responsible for your compute footprint in the cloud, and that person has 10 minutes in the sprint that is looking at already this dashboarding that's in the Azure cloud.
Yeah, so as of now there isn't an alert you can set based on CO2 emissions, only on costs, but those are fairly similar. So if you spend more, you have more impact. So what you can do is set up an anomaly alert, which we have, which maybe states, oh, there's an increase in costs. Then you know, okay, maybe I need to do something. But I'm gonna
show the dashboards
within Azure. I hope everybody is familiar with the Azure portal. If not, it looks like this. Ta-da! I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, and it's live. I mean, this is with real data.
So no photos.
Yeah, or at least not saying we have seen this at that presentation, or at least not to our managers.
So this is still in preview, but if you go to your portal, you can search in this bar on carbon optimizations, and you are greeted by this wonderful dashboard. And what does it say? These are all your services, VMs, databases, websites, storage accounts, you name it, OpenAI, and you can see your CO2 emissions for those services.
I have a question. Correct.
This is given. This is in Azure.
Repeat the question so that everyone can hear it correct. Yes, the question was, if I understand correct, is this your solution or is it Azure? This is Azure. It's still in preview, but it's public preview, so everyone can see it and use it. However, Microsoft mentioned it's still on public preview, so you cannot build your own production environment, and there is no SLA yet, so no service level agreement to Microsoft, towards with Microsoft, but you can use it.
To be honest, there already is the data is already there. You can use Power BI to create even more fancier.
Yep.
Does it also work with Azure?
Yeah.
With
Azure function, yes, every Azure service is here, and I can show you. If you go to details, we can see the different subscriptions. Oh, and there it should. Let me.
Yeah, and it's for all subscriptions that the person who is viewing this dashboard has rights on. Fortunately, we have some rights on some Azure subscription, but all what Microsoft calls first citizen Azure functions. So Azure Functions, Azure App Services, Azure Storage Accounts, Azure Virtual Machines, Azure OpenAI Services, Azure Logic Apps.
Everything, and you can see here.
Everything that is general available is over here.
It's I'm using a dark theme, so you can do it on subscription level, resource groups, resources and services, and on the services you can see the different virtual machines, how much CO2 that costs, your app service, which is again the functions apps, Microsoft Defender, and everything is labeled here. You can also see it per location. The fun thing is that East US is barely used, but in comparison it's pretty big.
Do you know if this is also already available for AWS? Something similar?
Good question, and I don't know.
I don't really know.
I assume that there is on their vision. I don't know.
Okay, because I heard that they do have a carbon footprint dashboard, but it's not very. I mean, they don't measure everything.
No. This is based on the same data as the pricing is based, so.
Yeah, but it incorporates which data center, and for each data center they have a multiplier how green the data center is. So it's not one-on-one for the price, but it's also together with an formula for each data center.
If you want to know the exact formula, you can follow this link, and they have the white paper on which calculation they use. I think it's the most optimal calculation they can use, because again, it's not something they want to talk about that much. You can also see an advisory. This is the same as the advisory in the Azure portal. It recommends maybe, in this case, this VM, which is barely used, and they say, well, you can shut it down to reduce this much kilograms CO2 and this much money. And then you can also see how much trees you need to plant in order to see. You can also see different examples. So it's a pretty neat feature which like everybody can just look at already and see, okay, what's my impact, and can I and you can already see in this moment of time we had a project to reduce costs, and you see the CO2 impact go down, and it's over 50% decrease.
Yeah. So we this real life example that we keep also improving ourselves.
And so this is the carbon optimizations. Again, this is in preview, so there are still some bugs here and there. You can also use Power BI to use the Azure API to fetch all the data if you need.
You skipped the demo slides, but that's not really important. Everything is important, and we didn't touch equally from time perspective all the parts, but they are equally important: architecture, continuous improvement, and team architecture. So also keep that person, one person in every team, responsible for cost, emission, footprint, and the new way of thinking. I think for the recap we covered a lot of things. Show me the money is one of the things that we really say, okay, make that part visible, make money visible for managers, because then you get some space, and then you can talk also about what we really find important. And money is a good starting point. If you reduce some costs, then you get also some spare time to improve other things.
And maybe something cool to mention that it's about Soposteria has the goal to be CO2 neutral. Microsoft is already CO2 neutral because they planned a lot of wind farms and solar plants. They have the goal to be carbon neutral in 2050 based on all their history of CO2 emissions. So from the starting point of Microsoft up until 2050, they want to compensate all their CO2 emissions. And I think that's really wonderful, and it's something our companies can't achieve it because it's based on billions of investments. So that's something to take account when people say, well, cloud isn't green and you shouldn't use that. I think they'll think again, because I think it's the most greenest solution for hosting software.
And with that, we come to
questions.
2 parts. First, we say thank you. You can scan the QR code and get in touch with us for getting the presentation, the information. So thank you for that. And are there now any questions?
I'm going to throw this to you. Yeah, it's there. Are there any questions? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's the microphone, so.
My question was, I think it was a really good presentation. I really liked it. You guys really explained what actions the teams could take, people could take.
Yeah.
Really nice demo. The first time I'm seeing the dashboard in itself. But my question is more around, I can tell my teams, or let's say I can request my teams to take some of these actions, create a work item in every sprint, look at your dashboard, look at your carbon footprint, etc. How could we help the culture change? It's not about us as managers telling them, not looking at euros, but rather the teams themselves, the people themselves have this in their mindset every time they open an IDE to code, or every time
I think
they spin up an instance.
Showing it. I know there's a lot of companies have dashboards with like the CPU usage, are there any open tickets, are there any issues? Just have the CO2 emissions of that month on the dashboard.
And create also incentives if that also those KPIs getting in the green part of the scale.
And that's something, like for example, our leasing company for cars sends an email after we go to the garage like, okay, this maintenance has cost 500 euros. The people became aware that, okay, yes, I'm having a lease car, so I don't have to pay for these maintenance bills, but by sending out these emails, I think it decreased by 30%. 30%,
and
just by making people aware.
And that's also, there are studies for that just by informing and telling people what the impact is by going to the garage every time, just by informing and showing the bill, that really impacts for a lot of people, not all, but for a lot of people, that they change the behavior. Because they see, oh, when I go to the garage every time that costs money, and then they change. That has impact. Small impact, but a lot of small steps together make a difference.
But I think it's a good question, because it's the same that servers and environments cost money, and most teams aren't aware of that. They have no clue that their database is maybe costing 100 grand a month. And when you make them aware of that, they're like, oh shit, maybe we should do something about that. So, you had a question?
So.
We're gonna give some time to think, it's coming.
You mentioned dashboard or making it visible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to go digital to make it visible. Like sometimes the more touchable, sorry, I'm looking for the good English word. Tangible, thank you. The more tangible something is, the more it applies to your, or plays towards your emotions and has more impact. Like show, I don't know, how much forest did we save by reducing carbon footprint since last month or something like that. Print some posters. Okay, posters kill trees, but yeah, just yeah.
Make it touchable, make it crisp and clear for everyone.
Because you have the data, you can also do something like gamification with it, and then make an incentive.
Maybe a quick question before I pass the mic to you, because it's here already, so I'm going to ask the question anyways. So the question is, how much reliable is the data or the emission values which are shared by Azure and Microsoft?
Okay.
Right? Yeah, I think the issue still is they use a methodology to calculate it. You can see the white paper, but again, it's still a formula they use. So how accurate it really is, you aren't sure. But.
And it also doesn't really matter. I mean, if you can calculate, if you can decrease the CO2 emission and the footprint by saving 4 trees or 3 trees.
And I think it's becoming more important because of as of 2027, companies like Ordina are obligated to share their CO2 impact on level 2 and level 3. So they need to rely on this data to be...
Anyhow, so it is in the end those formulas that are used by Microsoft are matching those same standards as the government says, and therefore if there's some change in the law, Microsoft will adapt to that one too. And therefore it's not really important what the formula is now, as they are adapting all the way to that case of 2027, 2028, that law that you need to make it visible. And you can already retrieve the information, as mentioned, in Power BI, etc. So you can also create your own reports on that one.
Yeah, because one thing what I find a little tricky is, one is the methodology what they use to do this calculation, which is not shared. And the second thing is within Diamond we're also building our own dashboards, because there is again this discussion that how much reliable this data can be and how much we can rely on that, right? And we see a big difference in the CO2 outcomes when we compare with these two results.
Yeah, but also take into account that they use a multiplier for each data center. Scandinavia is more green than West Europe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, since you said like your favorite service is app service, yours is function apps, they are both like serverless, but like how much serverless are they? And if you know about any, information how Azure is, treating their green score internally for those serverless resources.
Yeah, so can we also? Yeah, the last question.
Yeah, of course,
okay.
you can answer. The last question.
I think Microsoft has set the goal as, again, it's a little bit marketing. They say we want to be CO2 neutral from the starting point of the company. App services are the most green thing they have because it's serverless, because it's shared computing. In the end, you can also use isolated if you want to.
Yeah.
To be fair, Microsoft really wants you to reduce your consumption in West Europe because it's completely full.
Yeah.
So they want you to switch away from VMs to app services. Because I can share it now, there isn't any available power within the data center.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's completely full.
They are sold out, so to say.
Yeah.
So, and that's also one of the key triggers that Microsoft uses to reallocate.
Yeah. So
If you have more questions, just connect with us.
And I think we have 5 minutes to switch from.
Or guys
Yeah,
are already gone.
there will be some time. We will also we will have drinks at the end of the meetup today, so there will be also plenty of time to connect there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.